Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Crossing the Line. As always, I'm Sergio Cano, Matt Intrican, Brian Kilman. Amigos, how's your weekend? How was it? What'd you guys do?
It was a solid weekend. Had a little Catholic outing. How was yours, Sergio?
Nice. Went to a few baby showers. It was cool.
Baby showers.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. We'll just leave it at that. I don't remember the rest of the night. But what about you, Brian? What'd you do?
About the same thing. Me and Matt were both on that retreat. Good retreat, all right weekend.
Nice. Get to relax a little bit. Get away from the hustle and bustle of Grand Junction. Anyways, let's get this show started. Fellas, the NFL is, they proposed some new rules proposed by the CBA, 17-game regular season, 14-team postseason, and some other rules that would help some players. Penalties would be reduced for players that tested positive for THC. Josh Gordon, we're looking at you. And some other ones, they're probably like, what, really? Now they're barely starting to do this. Unfortunately, they're waiting for the players to approve for that, but it's not looking so good because some other players like Sherman, J.J. Watt, Jarvis Landry, they spoke out about it, and they're not really liking it for the 17-game regular season for plenty of reasons, lower pay cut, or it's a possibility that they're only going to get paid $250,000 for the last game, and just a lot of risk factors. Brian, do you want to tell us more about that? What do you think about it exactly?
Yeah, there's pros and cons to both those major propositions that the NFL has made. When it comes to the new playoff rules, 7 teams from each conference, and the 17-game regular season, we get to watch more football. But when it comes to that first round of the playoffs, it might not be as entertaining as football. This year, the seventh seed from the AFC was going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers would have played very entertaining football at all in the playoffs. Devlin Hodges, nothing against him, but if they went up against Tom Brady, they would just have been sort of slaughtered in that one.
Right.
But yeah, there's definitely pros and cons to both. When it comes to the 17-game regular season, the most obvious con to that is you're playing an odd number of games. So one team or half the teams are going to play 8 games at home, the other half are going to play 9 games at home. And is that fair? Not really. You don't want the Patriots getting 9 games at home rather than 8, as well as just makes for an unbalanced finish of the season. Every other sport we see has an even amount of games. The NHL, NBA, Premier League Soccer,
Right.
MLB, all are even amount of games, so you can have the same amount of home and away. To add 1 game, I think, is silly.
Well, here's what I think is the tough thing about this issue is that the biggest motivator for both sides is money. The NFL obviously wants an extra game so that they can have more money, and I don't think that they would probably end up going, half the league plays 9 home games, half the league plays 8 home games. I think what the best solution would be is to play the games on a neutral site. Like they want to get more games in London and Mexico, but I see a lot of problems with that, and a lot of coaches and teams might get upset that they have to go out and do these extra long distance plane rides to make that happen. And when it's late in the season, you have things online, you do not want to have to worry about your players being jet lagged and all that. And so, but at the same time, going back to the money issue, of course, the superstars don't care about money as much, but it's more for the little guys, the weaker, the less paid players that need it more. And when you play that extra 17th game, you get maybe an extra $150,000. That's a lot of money for players who do not have the salary and do not have the lifespan as an NFL football player. And so that can mean a lot to them.
Right.
But basically, when it comes to extending playoff teams, I think it's a question of, do we want to start looking like the NBA? Do we want more teams with losing records in the playoffs? Everybody was up in arms when the St. Louis Rams at 7-9 went to the playoffs, and everybody was getting so upset that the Eagles and Cowboys were fighting to be the division champions last year. So it's tough, but I'm kind of hoping that it will get done. At the same time, I like stats. I'm a big stat. It would be annoying to have to adjust our perception of what 5,000 passing yards means, what 20 rushing touchdowns means.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So
that's a good point.
there's a lot of things that are going to change. There's a lot of adjustments that are going to be made. I just hope they really think this through, and make sure they're doing what's best for both sides, what's right for the players and their health. I don't think that's a big motivator, but I hope that they do what's right.
Right. That being said, before we move on, Roger Goodell did say that the teams that would have 9 home games one season, the next season they'd have 8. I just feel like that's a lot of work, a lot of intricacies. Like exactly what you were saying, the whole seasons, the stats would be inflated. You add another game, and not a lot of teams would be playing international games. Like he said that as well. And even if they did, like what you said, the whole plane rides, there's just a lot of problems. I feel like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think it looks good right now.
Yeah.
Players don't want to risk injury for another week of just regular season football, and it's just kind of, I don't know, it's kind of weird. But any closing statements on that?
I think, like you mentioned, sort of the injuries. You play one more game of 60 more minutes of competitive football rather than the other preseason game, and that, I think the regular season thing I think is going to pass. The playoff thing, that could be all right. I wouldn't be opposed to that. 3 wild card games from each conference rather than 2. That'd be all right. Wild card football is fun football for the most part, but it also makes the number 1 seed more valuable. And do we need teams like the number 1 seed becoming more valuable? They are the only team who doesn't have to play the first round now, and we've seen in the past 7 years 10 number 1 seeds have made the Super Bowl, and the other 4 teams were number 2 seeds. So I don't think that the number 1 seeds need to have any more of an advantage.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I also more playoff football teams. I mean, wouldn't be that bad of an idea. Matt, how do you feel about that exactly?
Going back to the split between home games and road games, Roger Goodell is thinking you're going to do 9 games this season, and 9 home games this season, and then 8 home games the next season. Well, if you're a team who's maybe 8-8 going into the final game, and you just need one more win to get into the playoffs, and you have to go to a place like Foxborough, go do that, or Kansas City, I don't think that team's going to be very happy to know that that their season is on the line, and they have to go to a hostile environment to go and do that.
Right. I feel like there's going to be a lot of uproar from players. They need now they're just literally waiting for the players' union to approve it. But unfortunate for the owners, I don't think it will. We saw them spoke out, and a lot of other players spoke out about it. So we'll see what happens. Only time will tell. Moving on to the next topic, fellas. Dave Ayers, a Zamboni driver, got to be an emergency goalie this past weekend for the Carolina Hurricanes. I mean, how cool would that be? You're just doing your ordinary job, and someone's just like, "Hey, you, average Joe, come over here and just try to protect the puck from coming in." It's just wild for me to think about that. That being said, what would be your guys' ideal emergency goalie situation in any sport? Matt?
Let me paint a little picture for you guys.
Oh, man.
All right.
Matt Picasso.
It's the World Cup final. The lowly United States team is going up against the Brazil national team. Great underdog. Great overdog, so to speak.
Overdog.
Time has expired. We're going into a penalty kick shootout. All the players on the U.S. team suddenly get deathly ill. Nobody can move. They say, "We need a soccer player." I raise my hand because when somebody says they need a soccer player in the World Cup, you raise your hand. It's like a Ghostbuster situation. I go in there. Ball's lined up. I'm looking at the best goalie in the world. I go up there and I hit the game-winning shot to bring the World Cup back to the greatest country in the world. And I win the USA the World Cup. That's my dream.
Wow.
That's what I'm saying.
Ryan?
That's an awful good dream there, man. I definitely, in my considerations for this question, I did not put so much thought into the glory of it all. I just, realistically, probably hockey goalie, because most notably because it actually happens. We see it every couple of years. We see an average Joe get to go play goalie for a hockey team, and that would also be fun too. Very fun, I think, to play goalie in hockey. That's one thing I wish I could have done, but. Also, just I'm a goalie by trade. I played goalie when I played soccer, so I think that'd be a lot of fun. But the other thing I think that would be fun is, there's a game, go to a local NFL game, and the kicker stubs his toe or something, and they say, we need somebody to play kicker. I'd love to go out there, kick an extra point or something.
Wow.
Just I think that'd be my thing. Just hockey goalie realistically, but kicker in the NFL, I think that'd be cool. Strap on a helmet, kick the ball, probably miss it pretty bad.
Oh, that's not bad at all. Mine is most likely probably never going to happen. But say I'm the grounds crew for the Denver Nuggets and Jamal Murray and all the other point guards got injured, and they looked at me and said, like, all right, let's get this 160-pound, 5'9" kid. Like, hey, you want to play for – maybe he has cramps. Let's say Jamal Murray has cramps, and I go in and play for 2 minutes. I think that'd be super ideal. I probably wouldn't do anything. I'd probably just get wrecked on offense and defense, but it'd be really fun to just go in there. I should start jacking up threes. I wouldn't even care about my field goal percentage. I won't even be on the stats, so I don't know what. But if that were to happen, which will likely never happen, that would be my situation. And apologies, I almost forgot one topic. Fellas, let's go on to the one I kind of hovered over. Saturday marked the 40th anniversary of the Miracle on Ice. The United States men's national hockey team defeated the Soviet Union in the 1980 Olympic Winter Games. And speaking of underdogs, Brian, who is the greatest underdog in your mind?
I have a couple, Sergio, that I'd like to mention. First of all, I'd like to mention the Leicester City Football Club. Mm-hmm. They went into the season 5,000 to 1 odds to win the Premier League title. And the season prior to that, they almost got demoted. Nobody gave them a chance. 5,000 to 1 odds. You can go to Vegas and bet that Elvis Presley is alive for those same odds. So this team had no chance. They didn't even think they should be playing Premier League soccer, a lot of people. Wow. And they went up against these teams like Manchester United, Manchester City, Liverpool, and they won the Premier League title, despite all these things going against them.
Right. Matt?
Yeah, I have a couple honorable mentions to give away before I get to my main event. The first, I want to say characters from the Benchwarmers and Convicts from The Longest Yard. Those are some great stories, some great underdogs, very inspirational. But my number one underdog story of all time has to go to the 2007 Colorado Rockies.
Oh, man.
I have another picture to paint. It's early in September. The Colorado Rockies are 15.5 games out of first place. They go on a miraculous run, winning 12 games in a row, ultimately 21 of their last 22, infamously defeating the San Diego Padres in Game 163, the regular season tiebreaker, on a walk-off and totally uncontroversial slide by Matt Holliday. Then they went on to sweep the Philadelphia Phillies in the NLDS. Then they went on to sweep the Arizona Diamondbacks in the NLCS. And then some events that we won't talk about happened in the World Series. But still, the Colorado Rockies, the small market, great baseball team of 2007, made an unprecedented run to win the NL championship.
Wow.
And that is my underdog story.
My underdog story is also a local Denver team, Denver Nuggets, in the 1994 playoffs against the Seattle Supersonics. Denver Nuggets are number 8 seed, Sonics are the number 1 seed, and Denver won in the best of series of 5. They won 3-2 in overtime in Seattle, 98-94. An iconic picture of Dikembe Mutombo holding the ball, crying. I just don't think it gets any better than that. Unfortunately, it's like the greatest moment in Denver Nuggets history. So, hopefully we could, it's awesome that we're in history for that. But let's try to add a few more finals appearances, at least one, because we really don't have any. But that's my underdog story. Also, shout out Tim Tebow and the Broncos in
Tim
2011.
Tebow, that's a good one.
Yep. Fastest
Yeah.
overtime finish, DT.
That
Y'all
was
remember
pretty
that? I know you Pittsburgh Steeler fans remember that. Okay, well, approaching our last topic. Kyrie Irving is out for the season. He will undergo right shoulder surgery. Fellas, this brings up the question. The Nets right now are in 7th seed. They have a 26-29 record. They tend to play better with Kyrie. Will they make the playoffs? Go. Whoever feels they got
I'll go first.
hot stuff on it.
I think they will. They 27 games left in the season. This season, as well as seasons previously with Kyrie's teams, they seem to play better without Kyrie. Especially teams that we see are more. They don't have the superstars. When he played with LeBron, it might have been LeBron carrying that team, but Kyrie was a great player as well, and Kyrie's still a great player. But we've seen when he's out this season, he's been better. Since he went out for the season, the Nets have been 5-2. They only losses are the 76ers and the Raptors, but they also beat the Raptors in Toronto. And the Nets have 6 games on the Wizards, 7.5 games on the Bulls and the Hornets. I think with 27 games left in the season, I think they can pull it out. They've looked good, especially Spencer Dinwiddie. 21 points per game, almost 7 assists. And even DeAndre Jordan has been stepping up recently. In the last 10 games, he's averaging almost a double-double, 9.5 points, 10.5 rebounds.
Wow.
Yeah, I agree with you, Brian. I think Brooklyn does have a great shot to make the playoffs this year, especially when you consider the teams that they're competing with for that last playoff spot. You have Washington Wizards and Orlando Magic, who aren't exactly making noise in the NBA this year. But yeah, going back to Kyrie Irving, how teams play with and without this guy. Fortunately for the Brooklyn Nets, Kyrie Irving has a little bit of a good luck Chuck effect to him, meaning that when this guy goes away, good things happen to you.
Yeah.
Because this Brooklyn Nets team, they still have a solid core. You mentioned Spencer Dinwiddie, DeAndre Jordan. I also like Jared Allen. They've still got good players on the team. It's not like this is the Cleveland Cavaliers who are losing LeBron James and then just totally tank and win 12 games the rest of the season. They're not a bad team. And, because like you said, they're still managing to win games. They do not have a better record with Kyrie Irving playing in the game. And you know what? They're a team with a lot to prove. They're a team that's hungry, and it's a good thing this question is, can they make the playoffs? Because, I think they can make the playoffs, but I don't think they can go much further than making the first round.
Right.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. They, if they get the 8th seed, I don't think they'll come within double digits of the Bucks in any game. 4 games, the Bucks are going to beat them into oblivion, I think. The Bucks will beat any 8th seed from the East into oblivion. The Raptors are a lot better than the Nets, I think. The Celtics are a lot better than the Nets. So I think they'll make the playoffs, but I think it would be very far-fetched. That'd be a good underdog story if the Nets could win a series.
Oh, yeah,
Pull
wow.
off 1994 Nuggets.
Yep. I also agree. As good as Kyrie is, we know how ball dominant he is, and when he's out, we've seen it with the Celtics, we've seen it with the Nets, how they tend to play better, they tend to have a winning record, and it's just they play stingier defense. There's more ball movement around, like you were saying. Spencer Dinwiddie kind of unleashes and starts playing more of his ball, and there's a more efficient offense. No knock on Kyrie, it's just a pattern that teams that he's played with in the past, it's what happens, and history tends to repeat itself. So I think, like you said, the other teams are too far behind of catching the Nets, so I think they'll still make the playoffs. And I guess we'll just have to wait till next year and see what they got in store for us. But anyways, that brings us to a close to another episode of Crossing the Line. Before we conclude this show, let's give out our weekly shout-outs. Matt, who's your shout-out?
My shout-out goes to Joe Burrow and his small hands today at the NFL Draft Combine. Joe Burrow's pinky to thumb measurement was only 9 inches. That is the smallest since 2008, smaller than other notable quarterbacks, including the 5'10" Kyler Murray. Like I said, smallest hand since 2008. Yeah. And for Joe Burrow, I just hope this is one instance where size doesn't matter.
Oh my God.
Hopefully.
Funny.
He could. He was slinging the ball at LSU, so I don't know that his small hands will. Hopefully that doesn't hold him back. Love the kid, you know. Great story at LSU. My shout out is going to go to my man Greg Robinson. He got arrested for possession with intent to sell of 157 pounds of marijuana last week.
Near the Mexican border.
I think it's just talks about the state of the NFL's players, man. If you're an NFL player and you're still selling weed on the side, 157 pounds of it nonetheless.
That's a lot, you know. It's a lot to use to unwind.
Sometimes you just don't want to run out. You know?
Yeah. I don't know how he had intent to sell.
He was going to Mexico to sell that. Something. But my shout out is Tyson Fury for delivering Deontay Wilder's first loss and a pretty convincing victory. I'm expecting a rematch. Rematch number 3 is going to happen. So shout out Tyson Fury for holding it down for Great Britain. So that brings us to a conclusion. Thank you guys for watching, and tune in next week. Hasta luego.